Hi, and welcome back to the AIDC debate. And as you can see, this is our very first video taped episode. And where are we, Shen?
We are in the DC for the DC.
We're in Washington, D.C., and this is Data Center World. So in the next few minutes, what we'll do is we'll teleport ourselves from place to place as we first bring and discuss a few news items, but also bring you a few technologies that are hot topics here. So today's episode will be hot topics, and we'll also do a little bit of myth busting and news as we always do. So with this, we're now going to teleport ourselves to our next stop. All right, so we've just moved ourselves to the expo floor. Now, over the last 2 weeks, the hot topic in our group chat has been the
Shortage of transformers.
Supposedly, everyone's going left, right, and center and talking about how there's not enough transformers, and then as a result, data centers are delayed. I think people say half of the data centers are delayed.
Yep.
And then what did we find when we came here?
So we realized that there's a lot of transformer companies from China ready to ship. Not yet ready to ship. They still need to spend some time to pass all the certifications, the safety tests, or the United States voltage, frequency, etc. So that will take some time. That's probably the reason why there is a little bit of delay. But I don't think there's a problem of capacity of production.
Exactly. And the thing is, people are saying, they're saying that the sign that there is a problem is that last year there was a lot of imports. Well, there's always going to be an import when your capacity at home is limited, but then there's more demand. Imports is the most normal thing.
Yeah, and transformer is not a data center only thing. Transformer is like universal product. It's everywhere in your neighborhood, in your factory, in your school, in your hospital. But the thing is just there's a mismatch of demand and supply in America, and the solution is to buy it from elsewhere. It definitely will be some delays because of you have different voltage, the HV is different, MV is different, the LV and the frequency is different from Europe, from China. So that will take some time for people to get certificates and also get it shipped to the United States. So I don't worry that there will be any cancellation of data center projects because of that. I think most likely we'll just get a few months delay. That is all right, to be honest.
I agree. Actually, just before we came here, Shen and I were on a little tour. We went to 5 countries in 5 days. If you have not seen our travels, check us out on LinkedIn. We have recorded it. It was pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
It was pretty crazy. But one of the things that was a running theme on the road was that the demand seems to be crazy. We went to a few different component companies, and it looked like the hyperscalers had been there before us. And what they're doing is they're setting up the supply chain for their huge demand.
That's right. So the thing is nowadays, the capacity of the components manufacturing has been booked by the hyperscaler directly because they don't want their system integrators to be running short of supply. So they book the component capacity in the front, then they they place orders to their integrators to produce things for them, including power system, including cooling systems, and also including power cooling and server system. As we're about to leave, we have this conversation with nice lady Judy here. And so actually we'll talk about a little bit on the lead time of this transformer to the United States. Do you think there's a delay in your situation?
I think for transformer, especially high voltage, locally is about 4 to 5 years lead time.
Yeah.
But we only supply 8 to 10 months lead time delivery DTP to job site because we have our capacity. Also, have a great management of supply chain. So we produce a lot of key components by ourselves. And then because of that, so we can really satisfy with this bottleneck for data center fast construction.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So that including not only the HV to MV transformers, but also the MV to LV transformers.
So we are specialized in high voltage.
High voltage.
So also for high voltage circuit breaker.
Okay.
So right now we can supply as fast as 6 months TTP to US job site. So
I have one more question then. So is the voltage and the frequency adapted to the American standards?
Yes.
So it's already American standard already. And there's no problem for certification. And for example, UL and etc.
Yes, we have all the full certificates, tested, for example, KEMA and all the certificates, UL certificates, IEEE certificates. We have all of that. We've already started supplying for data center projects, for example, like Texas and other states as well.
Amazing. But what if there's so many customers, they're asking for so many transformers? Do you think you are able to deliver that in time, still in the 10 months lead time?
So we are expanding our second phase of a facility as well. And we have a JV with Toshiba. So, so we do have the capacity for 2027, 2028.
So even if I order now, I can get a transformer in 10 months.
Yes, that's right.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Hi guys, happy to see you again. So we go to this booth and we discovered this crazy shaped black ball. I don't know what this is. Greg, could you explain it?
Sure, absolutely. So this is a 3D printed nuclear core, a replica of that. Yes.
Wow. So the real bore is much bigger than this.
Yeah, the real one would be about 5 feet in diameter and made of silicon carbide.
Wow. And what's the material?
Silicon carbide and 3D printed.
Silicon carbide.
Yes.
Okay. And so what's the fuel of the nuclear reactor?
So the nuclear reactor we're doing uses thorium.
So not uranium at all.
Not uranium at all. No. So thorium, it's a naturally abundant mineral.
Yeah.
Very good properties to make energy with, but very safe.
Wow. And does it have safety concerns? Like what if there's a uncontrolled chain reaction?
That's a good question. And so what we're doing is it's a subcritical operation. And what that means is the reaction happens when we externally put neutrons into the system.
Yeah. And
when we stop that, the reaction stops. So that makes it ultra safe. So you cannot have a chain reaction event.
So you have a neuron generators just shooting neurons on this ball constantly.
Correct.
And once the neuron stops, the chain reaction stops.
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
But how do you throttle the energy outputs? Also by reducing the amount of neurons?
So if we wanted to, we can actually level it up and level it down based on the amount of neutrons we put into the system.
Wow. And what is the coolant?
We use helium. No, there's no liquid in this at all.
Okay.
So this is helium is what we use to cool the core.
Gas helium or liquefied helium?
So it's all gas. There's no liquid in the entire process.
So there was no concerns of liquid leakage?
Correct. By not having liquid, you don't have to worry about leaks.
Wow, that's great. And I wonder how much power does this ball give us?
Yeah. So if you look at this, one of these balls gives about 15 megawatts of power.
15 megawatts.
15
that's
megawatts.
A lot.
So you think about it, that's about 15 to 20,000 homes worth of power. Now, in a 40-foot shipping container, we can fit 2 of these balls. So you're getting about 30 megawatts of electrical output.
Wow. So each of the container means like 20 gas generators.
Yeah, if you could look at it that way, yeah.
And how long does it last?
What's really neat about this is it's got a 30-year life. So it's factory sealed, and you don't need to refuel it for 30 years.
So after 30 years, I can just change the ball?
Well, that's one opportunity. Or probably I'm hoping in 30 years we'll have even more advanced technology.
Yeah, fusion might be
that comes along. So you mentioned fusion. We're a hybrid fission fusion process right now.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. And is there already a prototype of this?
So right now we're building a prototype. We're going to be in 2028. We'll have a unit at a government facility. 2029 will be a commercial demonstrator. And then we're looking at full-scale production starting in 2030.
So since 2030, we can buy a ball like this, our home power supply.
Well, we're looking at data centers, maritime, and defense. We're looking at those sectors to start.
Also maritime.
Maritime as well, yes.
So do you think maritime has a harder or more strict regulation on using reactors than data center?
No, it's all right. I would say we're working with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, right?
Yeah.
And so the way the agreements are internationally, the other countries recognize the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So actually, it should, across the board, work for maritime based on what port you're in, or for data center based on where you're located.
That's very cool.
It is.
That's very cool. And what is the type of the generator, by the way? Is that a gas turbine?
So we use a power generation system that uses supercritical CO2.
Yeah.
And to turn the turbines in the system.
Okay, so helium heat up the CO2.
Helium is for the core.
Yeah.
And supercritical CO2 is for the power generation system.
Okay, so expanded super high temperature CO2 drives the turbine
That's correct.
to move. And the turbine is outside of the
inside.
reactor?
So within the 40-foot container, we have the neutrons going into the core. So we've got the core, we've got the power generation system, which includes the heat exchanger, the turbines, the electric generation, and the condenser.
Wow. So it's like a small power bank for data center that lasts for 30 years.
It's like a small power plant
Uh-huh.
that's independent. You can go for 30 years.
Wow, amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shen.
Hi guys, I want to show you another cool thing. We found a third option apart from direct chip cooling and immersion cooling. This rack behind us, it's the spray cooling, and it's a very special type of spray cooling. I just had a chance to understand and look at it. Actually, it's very different from what I thought. So can I ask you some question, Tony?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what makes it so special in terms of a spray? How does it work?
Yeah, it's just a very unique solution in the industry that we haven't typically seen or haven't seen so far. But for the spray cooling, as you can see, all of these are cassettes. There's a server within each one of these cassettes, and we have a spray head that is 3D printed to match up with almost any type of server, and it sprays the hottest spots. So think of GPUs, CPUs, and processors of what is actually being sprayed.
So what is the liquids of the spray?
The liquid is like an oil substance. Think of it as like a vegetable oil or mineral.
So dielectric.
Yep, dielectric fluid.
So
Yep.
they are sprayed directly onto the hottest spots and
Yep.
flow down through the other not so much hot spots.
Correct. You could think of it as like, hey, you're spraying, but then there's kind of like a waterfall coming down the rest of the server.
Cool.
Yep.
And how does the heat exchange happen? So does it go to a centralized heat exchanger, or every test has its own heat exchanger? And does it need a CDU, or does it just need a facility water?
Great question. So, you have some type of heat rejection equipment. We prefer a dry cooler. You could use a chiller if you wanted, but say dry cooler, that facility water comes into the rack itself, the back of this rack. And then we have hoses that hook up to each one of these cassettes. There's a heat exchanger and a pump on each one of the cassettes. So we take those components from the CDU and bring them to the server level. You really simplify the system overall.
Okay.
So you essentially go from dry cooler to liquid rack, nothing in between.
So if you recommend to use a dry cooler, that means this one can handle quite high temperature, working temperature.
Yeah, so we have tested it. We can bring facility water up to 60 C.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
And what is the maximum capacity of this rack?
With a dry cooler and higher temps, around 80 kilowatts. So
80 kilowatts.
Yep, 80 kilowatts for the rack, 8 kilowatts per cassette. So we're looking at some of your high density CPUs rather than your high density GPUs.
I think that is quite enough for not so hyperscale kind of AI deployments. And who would you like to sell to? Who is your target customer?
A good question. So we're really targeting the legacy data centers where they might not have enough room for adding all that additional infrastructure on the cooling side. Given a very simplistic system, I think it's a really, really good opportunity for these legacy data centers. Also, we're looking at edge deployments and enterprise facilities as well.
Okay, that's cool. And I think for those kind of small users, they don't have enough maintenance team. What if one server breaks? How do I get to fix it?
Great question. So if anything goes wrong with the server or even some of the mechanical, like the pumps, you simply take one of these out, replace it with another, and that's it.
That's very handy.
It's very simple.
So that does not require any kind of electrical workers or...
Nope. You would just disconnect, say the electrical and networking components, disconnect the hose, bring in the new cassette, and then connect it back.
I think that's very cool. I think that suits in most of the medium-sized or smaller-sized data centers or the universities, hospitals, or national labs, etc. They'll be loving this.
I think so.